The sound of my shoes echoed like gunshots in the hallway of the registry office. Everyone had already turned their heads toward the entrance, waiting for her. It was supposed to be our moment. Fiona walking through those doors, smiling, all eyes on her. Instead, the silence was suffocating. I could feel the weight of every stare, every whispered conversation behind me. I checked the clock again. 3:07 p.m. She was late. Not the cute and flustered kind of late, but the kind of late that makes your stomach twist because you know something is wrong. I tried calling her. No answer. I tried again. Voicemail. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. Then I saw Harper, her sister, rushing down the hallway. Her face was pale, her hair slightly messy, like she'd been running. Everyone turned to look at her, expecting her to announce Fiona's arrival. Instead, she stopped in front of me, her chest heaving, and said 4 words that blew my world apart. "She's not coming, Nolan." The floor felt like it had disappeared beneath me. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound, because I thought it had to be a joke. This wasn't real. Fiona wouldn't do this. Not after everything we'd been through. But Harper's eyes were filled with something I'd never seen before, guilt. "She left," Harper said quietly. "She walked out this morning. She's gone, Nolan." "I'm sorry." The room spun. Guests were whispering. Someone cleared their throat. My mother looked like she was about to cry. And all I could do was stand there, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles went white. That was the moment something inside me broke. Not just my heart. Something deeper, darker. It wasn't anger. It was this hollow, gnawing emptiness. And before I even realized what I was saying, I looked at Harper and said, "Then marry me instead." The room went silent. Absolutely silent. I swear I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights above. Harper's eyes widened like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. The moment those words left my mouth, "Then marry me instead," I wanted to swallow them back, pretend I never said them. But the silence in the room was too heavy, too sharp, like a blade pressing against my throat. Everyone heard me. Every guest, every family member, the registrar standing frozen near the desk. It wasn't a joke. It didn't sound like a joke. I wasn't even sure why I said it. Maybe I was angry. Maybe I was humiliated and desperate to take control of the moment, to prove I wasn't just some broken man standing there abandoned like a discarded coat. Harper's face shifted from shock to something I couldn't read. She glanced around the room, as if expecting someone else to intervene, but no one moved. Fiona's mother, sitting in the front row, looked as though she was about to faint. My brother gave me this look that said, "Are you insane?" Maybe I was. Maybe I still am. Nolan, that's insane," Harper finally said, her voice low but trembling. "This isn't something you just—" "Why not?" I cut her off, my voice louder than I intended, echoing through the room. "Why not, Harper? Fiona's the one who ran. She's the one who didn't show. We have the papers, the registrar, everyone's here. Why not?" The truth is, I wasn't thinking straight. I was running on humiliation, heartbreak, and pure adrenaline. Every eye on me felt like a spotlight, burning through my skin. I wanted to feel powerful again, even if it meant doing something reckless. Harper took a slow breath, and for a moment I thought she would walk away. Instead, she stepped closer, close enough for me to see the pulse beating fast in her neck. She leaned in slightly and whispered, "Do you even know what you're saying?" I stared back, refusing to look away. "Yes," I lied. What happened next still feels like a blur. Harper didn't walk away. She didn't shout. She just turned to the registrar and said, with this strange calmness, "Give us a minute." We walked out of the room together, down the hallway that suddenly felt like a tunnel closing in on me. The second we were alone, she grabbed my arm. "Nolan, you've lost your mind," she said. "You don't want me. You don't even like me half the time. You're angry, and you're hurt, and I get it, but—" "Fiona doesn't want me," I interrupted, my voice cracking, surprising even myself with how small it sounded. "She just left. I don't want to feel like a fool. I don't want to go home tonight knowing everyone saw me standing there like an idiot while she ran." Harper's expression softened, and for a second, I saw something in her eyes. Pity, maybe, or something darker. "You don't want to marry me, Nolan," she said quietly. "But I'll tell you something, she doesn't deserve you. Not after this." I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that Fiona was still everything I wanted, but the words wouldn't come out. Instead, I just stood there, breathing hard, my heart pounding as if something was about to happen that would change everything. And then, Harper did something I'll never forget. She reached for my hand, not as a lover, but like someone pulling a drowning man out of the water. "Let's go back in there," she said. "But you have to think about what you're about to do. If we do this, there's no going back. No undoing it." And I didn't answer. I just followed her back into that room. When we walked back into that room, the tension was so thick you could taste it. Everyone was on edge, their eyes darting between me and Harper like they were trying to predict what insane thing would happen next. I could feel the sweat on the back of my neck, the heat of humiliation still burning my skin, but I wasn't backing down. Something in me had snapped, and I couldn't just stand there and let Fiona's absence be the story people would tell for years. I wasn't going to be the guy who got left at the altar and then quietly went home to cry in the dark. At least, that's what I told myself in that moment, though crying in the dark is exactly what I'd end up doing later. Harper stopped in the middle of the room, glanced at me, then at the registrar. For a split second, I thought she was going to announce that I had lost my mind and this circus was over. But then, she looked right at me and said something I will never forget. "If you're serious, Nolan, I'm not letting you do this alone." The gasp from the crowd was almost louder than her voice. My brother's jaw dropped. Fiona's cousin muttered something under his breath that I couldn't catch. And me? I just stood there like an idiot, blinking, because I didn't expect her to call my bluff. I didn't expect anyone to take me seriously. I thought Harper would laugh it off, tell me I was crazy, and drag me outside until I calmed down. Instead, she was giving me an opening to do the most reckless thing of my entire life. "Are you saying?" I started, my throat dry. Harper gave me a strange little smile, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes. "I'm saying if this is what you want, I'm not going to let her ruin you. But you'd better mean it, Nolan. No games. No pretending." The registrar looked like they didn't know whether to stop us or just roll with it. We'd have to change the paperwork," they stammered. "But it's technically possible if—" "Do it," Harper cut in, her voice steady. She turned to me, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "I'm not doing this for show. If you go through with this, you're marrying me. Not to spite her. Not to prove a point. This would be real." Real. That word rattled around in my brain like a warning bell. This was supposed to be Fiona's day. I'd spent years imagining her face, her voice, the way she'd look at me when we signed the papers and became husband and wife. Now I was standing there with her sister, who, to be brutally honest, I never thought of in that way. Sure, Harper was beautiful, but she always had this sharp edge to her, a kind of energy that made me nervous. We'd argued plenty of times over the years, and I never once thought I'd be standing in a room full of people, holding her hand, about to what? Replace Fiona? I could feel everyone's judgment burning holes through me. But there was something about Harper's calmness that made me feel anchored. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't making this about Fiona's betrayal. She was staring at me like she wanted me to figure out who I really was in this moment. And then something inside me just broke. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was the fact that Fiona didn't even have the decency to show up and tell me to my face. I turned to the registrar, my voice hoarse but firm. "Do it. Change the paperwork. We're doing this." A murmur rippled through the room, and I could practically feel the shock radiating off my family. My brother whispered something like, "Are you out of your mind?" But I didn't even respond. Harper's hand tightened around mine, and for the first time that day, I didn't feel like I was falling apart. It wasn't love. It wasn't even logic. It was pure chaos, and I was ready to dive headfirst into it. I don't think I'll ever forget the look on my brother's face when the registrar started rewriting the paperwork. He looked like he was about to drag me out of there by the collar. And maybe he should have, because every single second that passed felt less like a rational choice and more like a slow-motion disaster I couldn't stop. The room had gone eerily quiet except for the scratch of a pen and the shuffling of guests shifting uncomfortably in their seats. You could practically hear the collective thought, "This man has lost his mind." Harper stood next to me, calm and composed, but I could feel her pulse racing through her hand as I held it. She leaned toward me, her voice just a whisper. "You don't have to do this, Nolan. Not for me, not for anyone. If you walk away now, no one will blame you." But I wasn't thinking clearly. My brain was buzzing like a swarm of bees. I could feel the humiliation from Fiona's absence burning a hole in my chest. If I walked away, Everyone would see me as the guy who got left behind, the guy who wasn't enough. But if I went through with this, well, I'd still be insane, but at least I wouldn't be her victim. That was the logic in my head at the time. Twisted and ridiculous, but real. The registrar cleared their throat and announced, in the most awkward tone imaginable, "We're ready to begin." The guests turned their heads toward us. I half expected someone to stand up and object, my brother, my mother, Fiona's family, but no one moved. Maybe they were too stunned. Maybe they wanted to see if I'd really go through with it. When the ceremony started, it felt like I was watching myself from the outside, like some deranged movie where the main character is making all the wrong choices and you're screaming at the screen for him to stop. I repeated the words, but they didn't feel like mine. My voice cracked more than once, and I felt like every eye in the room was drilling into me. Harper, on the other hand, was steady. Her voice didn't shake, her gaze didn't falter. She looked almost defiant, like she was daring anyone to question what was happening. And then it hit me, the most surreal, horrifying thought of the entire day. What if Fiona walked in right now? What if she walked through those doors, saw me standing here with her sister, and realized what I was about to do? I kept glancing toward the entrance, half expecting her to burst in, screaming, demanding an explanation. But she didn't. The door stayed closed. When it came time to sign the papers, I hesitated. For the briefest moment, my hand hovered over the line, my pen trembling. I looked at Harper. Her eyes were softer now, almost pleading. "You don't have to," she mouthed silently. I signed. And just like that, it was done. The registrar congratulated us with a smile so forced it could have cracked their face. The guests gave the most awkward, hesitant applause I've ever heard. My mother looked like she wanted to both hug me and slap me at the same time. Fiona's cousin stormed out, muttering something about this family being insane. I thought the worst part was over. I thought the shock and chaos would die down once everyone left. But I had no idea what was waiting for me outside those doors, because the moment we stepped out of the registry office, my phone buzzed with a message that made my blood run cold. It was from Fiona, and it simply said, "Nolan, we need to talk. You don't know the whole story." The moment I saw her name pop up on my phone, my stomach twisted into a knot so tight it felt like I couldn't breathe. Fiona, after hours of silence, after abandoning me in front of everyone we knew, she suddenly decided she wanted to talk. I stood outside the registry office, Harper's hand still loosely holding mine, the crowd of bewildered guests spilling out behind us, and I felt the world tilt on its axis. My mind was still buzzing with the insanity of what I'd just done, marrying her sister in a blaze of chaos and wounded pride, and now Fiona's name was glowing on the screen like some cruel ghost haunting me. I stared at the message for a full minute before I even moved. "Nolan, we need to talk. You don't know the whole story." My first instinct was to throw the phone into the nearest trash can. The audacity of her sending that message while I was still reeling from everything, it made me feel like my brain was splitting in two. One part of me wanted to scream, to call her back and demand answers. The other part of me wanted to ignore her entirely, to pretend she no longer existed. But deep down, I knew I'd answer. I always answered her. "What is it?" Harper asked, glancing at my screen. Her voice was steady, but I noticed her hand tightened on mine, as though she already knew who it was. I didn't reply. I just stood there, frozen, staring at Fiona's name, until Harper said quietly, "If you're going to talk to her, you should do it alone. I'll wait by the car." She didn't sound angry, but there was this edge in her voice I couldn't quite place. She walked away without looking back, and for a second, I felt like I'd just stepped into a storm I wasn't prepared for. I took a few steps away from the guests who were lingering nearby, whispering like vultures circling a carcass, and I finally called Fiona. She picked up on the first ring. Her voice was trembling. "Nolan, please, listen to me. I need to explain." I clenched my teeth. "Explain?" "Fiona, I just married your sister because you disappeared without a word. Do you have any idea what you've done?" My voice cracked on the last word, because I hated admitting it out loud. I was still wrecked over her. There was a long pause. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "I left because I found out something about your family. About Harper. You don't understand. I was trying to protect you." I laughed bitterly, the kind of laugh that doesn't sound human. "Protect me? You left me standing there like an idiot in front of everyone. And now you're talking about Harper? What the hell are you trying to say?" Harper isn't who you think she is, Fiona whispered, her voice shaking now. She's not. She's been hiding things from you. Nolan, she's dangerous. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. Dangerous? Harper, the woman who just stood by me when Fiona humiliated me in front of everyone, was suddenly the villain? It sounded insane, like something out of a bad soap opera, but there was a tremor in Fiona's voice that made me hesitate. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice lower now, almost afraid of the answer. She's not doing this because she cares about you, Fiona continued. She's doing this because she's always wanted to ruin me. You think I just ran away because I'm heartless? I ran because I found out what she's been planning. The line suddenly went dead. I stared at my phone in shock, checking if the call had dropped, but it hadn't. It was as if Fiona had been cut off mid-sentence. I tried calling back. No answer. Again. Nothing. My heart was pounding, and suddenly every choice I'd made that day felt like it was teetering on the edge of a cliff. Behind me, Harper's voice called out, Nolan, are you coming? I turned to see her standing by the car, watching me with a calm, unreadable expression. And in that moment, for the first time all day, I wondered if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. The drive from the registry office felt like a fever dream. Harper insisted on taking me back to her apartment instead of mine, claiming it was closer and that I shouldn't be alone right now. I didn't argue. I didn't have the energy to argue. My phone sat in my lap like a loaded gun, Fiona's last words echoing in my mind. She's dangerous. It sounded ridiculous. Harper had just saved me from the ultimate humiliation by standing with me in front of everyone. But then again, why had she agreed so easily? What was she getting out of this? My gut churned with unease as I watched her hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly, her knuckles pale. She didn't speak much during the ride, but when she did, it was in a tone that made my skin crawl. Not angry, not soft, just calculated. We'll figure this out together, she said at one point, her eyes fixed on the road. Don't answer Fiona's calls. She'll just try to mess with your head. That's what she does. She's always been like that. The way she said it, like she was rewriting history, made me flinch. Fiona could be dramatic, sure, but she wasn't cruel. Not like this. Why would she say those things about you? I asked cautiously. Harper's grip on the wheel tightened. Because I know who she really is. And she can't stand that you might finally see it too. She's been playing you for years, Nolan. You were just too in love to notice. I wanted to argue, but the truth was, I didn't know what to believe anymore. My world had imploded in a single afternoon, and now I was sitting next to the woman I'd impulsively married, while the one I'd spent years loving was calling me with cryptic warnings. My chest ached, and I hated how pathetic I felt, like I was just some weak, broken man clinging to whatever scraps of stability I could find. When we arrived at Harper's apartment, the first thing I noticed was how spotless it was. Almost unnaturally spotless, like no one really lived there. She poured me a drink without asking, pressed the glass into my hand, and said, You need to calm down. Drink this. We'll talk when you've had a minute. The way she said it made me feel like I was a child being told to behave. I sipped the drink anyway, but my mind was still spinning. Fiona's message. Fiona's voice trembling over the phone. Harper's sudden, unwavering willingness to marry me. None of it made sense. Later, while Harper was in the kitchen, I stepped onto her balcony to get some air. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Fiona, this time just a single line that sent a shiver down my spine. She's not who you think she is. Check her drawer. My heart pounded. I stared at the sliding door, the apartment beyond it suddenly looking less like a sanctuary and more like a trap. What drawer? I didn't even know which room Fiona meant. I told myself not to listen, that Fiona was just trying to create drama, but curiosity dug its claws into me. When Harper went to take a call in the other room, I slipped back inside and quietly moved toward the bedroom. My hands were shaking as I pulled open the top drawer of her dresser. At first, I saw nothing but neatly folded clothes. Then, tucked beneath a stack of shirts, I found a small black notebook. Inside were pages of notes, names, dates, strange scribbles that didn't make sense. But what made my blood run cold was seeing my name scrawled again and again, alongside Fiona's, in what looked like some sort of plan. I couldn't even process it before Harper's voice called from behind me, calm but sharp like a knife. What are you doing in there, Nolan? I froze, the notebook still in my hands. I turned slowly, my heart hammering so hard I could barely hear anything else. Harper stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, her gaze sharp enough to cut through steel. The notebook trembled in my hands, and I felt like a kid caught snooping in the one place he shouldn't be. But it wasn't just guilt I felt, it was fear. Real fear. The kind that crawls under your skin and refuses to leave. Why do you have this? I asked, my voice unsteady as I held the notebook up like it was a weapon. She didn't move at first. She just tilted her head slightly, a cold smile creeping across her face. Because I like to keep track of things, she said softly, almost too softly. You wouldn't understand. Fiona never understood either. She thinks I'm dangerous, right? The way she said it made my stomach twist. She called me earlier, I admitted. She warned me about you. And now I'm starting to wonder what the hell I just got myself into. Harper stepped into the room, slow and deliberate, like a predator closing in on its prey. What you got yourself into, she said, her voice low, is freedom. Freedom from Fiona's games, her lies. Don't you get it, Nolan? She never loved you. She used you because you were easy to control. I'm the one who's been watching out for you all along. And you're too blind to see it. I took a step back, clutching the notebook. Watching out for me? Harper, there are pages in here with my name and Fiona's name over and over. What is this? Some sort of plan. What have you been doing? She sighed, as if I were too stupid to grasp something obvious. I was protecting you. Keeping track of the things Fiona did, the people she's been talking to, the lies she's told. But of course, you'd rather believe the sweet, innocent version of her than see the truth. Her tone sharpened, and she added, You think I just married you today because I felt sorry for you? No, I did it because I'm not afraid to act when something needs to be done. You don't even realize how weak you are. Her words stung more than I wanted to admit, and maybe because deep down, there was a sliver of truth in them. I was weak. I was pathetic enough to marry my ex-fiancée's sister out of pride and panic. But the way Harper looked at me now, like I was some broken thing she owned, made my skin crawl. Give me the notebook, Nolan, she said, holding out her hand. Her voice was calm again, almost too calm, and that terrified me even more. I shook my head, backing toward the door. Not until you tell me what all this means. Why did Fiona say you wanted to ruin her? Why do you even care what happens to us? Her expression hardened, the mask slipping for just a second. Because she's always had everything handed to her. Love, attention, admiration, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of watching her take things she doesn't deserve. She didn't deserve you, Nolan. She never did. You're better off without her, and if I have to be the one to make you see that, then so be it. Something about the way she said that, with this eerie calm mixed with bitterness, sent a jolt of fear through me. I realized in that moment that I had no idea who Harper really was, or what she was capable of. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Fiona's name lit up the screen with another message. If you're with her, get out. Now. I looked at Harper. She saw the message, and her smile faded into something darker. She's trying to pull you away from me again, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Don't let her win. Not after today. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Every instinct in my body screamed that I needed to get out of that apartment, away from Harper, away from whatever twisted game this had become. But the second I took a step toward the door, she moved faster than I expected, slamming it shut with her hand, her eyes locked on mine. You're not going anywhere, she said. For a moment, I thought she was going to lock me in that room. Harper's hand gripped the door so tightly her nails were leaving marks on the wood. Her eyes, usually sharp and calculating, were now filled with something I couldn't quite place. Fear? Desperation? I took a step back, holding the notebook like a shield. Harper, I said, my voice shaking but firm, I can't do this. I can't live like this, not knowing who to trust, not knowing what's real. I married you today because I was broken and angry, but I can't pretend this is normal. It's not. And I don't care what you say about Fiona. I need to hear the truth from both of you, not through secrets or scribbled notes in a drawer. For a long moment, she just stood there, breathing hard, staring at me like she was deciding whether to fight me or let me go. Then, something shifted in her expression. The tension in her shoulders eased, and she slowly stepped back. You're right, she said quietly. You don't deserve this mess. None of us do. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard her correctly. Harper dropped her hand from the door and sat down on the edge of the bed, her gaze softening in a way I'd never seen before. I've spent so much of my life in Fiona's shadow, she admitted, her voice breaking for the first time. I've always been second to her, second in my parents' eyes, second in love, second in everything. When she left you standing there today, I thought, maybe I could fix things. Maybe I could show you I was better for you than she ever was. But I went too far. The raw honesty in her voice stunned me. For the first time all day, I saw Harper not as the cold, calculating person I'd imagined, but as someone who had been hurting too. Someone who was tired of always being compared to her sister. My phone buzzed again, another message from Fiona, but I didn't look at it. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, "This isn't about proving who's better. I think all of us need to stop hurting each other. This day has been a disaster, but maybe it can be the start of something better, if we choose it." Harper gave me a small, sad smile. "You still love her, don't you?" I didn't answer, because we both knew the truth. After a long silence, Harper stood up and handed me the notebook. "Then go. Talk to her. I won't stop you. Maybe she owes you the answers I never could give." I left the apartment without looking back, my heart pounding but lighter somehow. Fiona was waiting outside, standing by her car with tears streaming down her face. When she saw me, she ran forward and hugged me so tightly I almost collapsed. "I'm sorry," she whispered over and over. "I should have told you everything before today. I panicked. I made a terrible mistake. But I never stopped loving you." In that moment, I realized that what I wanted more than anything wasn't revenge or pride. It was the truth, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to start over. We sat in her car for hours, talking, crying, trying to piece together the wreckage of the day. Harper's name came up, but not in anger. We both knew she needed her own healing, just as we did. It wasn't a perfect ending, but as the sun began to rise the next morning, Fiona held my hand and said, "Let's start again, from zero. No games. No secrets." And for the first time since that disastrous day began, I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a future worth fighting for.